I always tell people, like having a team is wonderful, but there's just a lot of people saying, this is what you should be doing. This is what works for radio and things like that. And it's wonderful to have that. But also on the other side, there was something that I was really like yearning for that I wasn't getting. And it kind of just like ran its course. So I said, you know what, I'm going to go off and do something independently. And, the best thing about being independent is that you make up your own rules.
Welcome to the Female Entrepreneur Musician Podcast with Bree Noble. Bree is a musician, entrepreneur, speaker, and founder of Women of Substance Music Radio and Podcast. Bree's interviews with successful female musicians and industry pros are both inspirational and informational. She also answers your questions about the music business. Bree is on a mission to help you create great music, connect with your fans, and grow your business, and to truly become a female entrepreneur musician.
Hey, what's going on? This is Bree Noble, and I want to thank you for tuning into the Female Entrepreneur Musician Podcast, where we talk about making great music, connecting with your audience, and growing your business. And I cannot believe that we are nearing the 3-year mark on this show. It is amazing, and it has been such an awesome ride. And I want to thank you guys for coming along for whatever part of the ride you have been on. I want to encourage you to go back to any of our previous 144 shows and check and see if you've listened to them all, because there are so many good ones, so many great interviews, so many really tactical episodes. And you can do that at FEM147.com. That's F as in female, E as in entrepreneur, musician.com. And speaking of great interviews, I have got one for you today with Sarah Darling. She is an established Nashville singer-songwriter. She's a lovely person, and I know you're going to really be inspired by her story and enjoy all of the little tips and tricks that she's got up her sleeve to tell you during the show today. So here's a little bit about Sarah Darling. Sarah Darling is an American country singer-songwriter from Nashville with many albums to her name. She had her first successful album in 2008 and her second in 2011. In August 2012, she had her first breakout single, Home to Me, after it was featured on SiriusXM's The Highway. It sold over 8,000 copies in the first week and became the top-selling single by a new female artist in that year. Now, we get into all the cool stuff that she's done since in our interview, so I won't spoil it for you. Here's my interview with Sarah Darling. So that's a little bit about Sarah Darling. So Sarah, is there anything about you that our listeners need to know that's maybe a little bit more unique or quirky, something that maybe wasn't mentioned in the bio that's a little more personal?
Well, for those of that don't know me very well, I have a serious case of travel. I love to travel and take flights and go on to different places. And I feel like that's something that people don't really know about me, is that I just have a constant need to travel and take photos and try new foods. So that's something that is always a little personal thing that I like to tell people.
Oh, I totally do too. And being a musician, that works really well into what you're doing. Thank goodness, right?
It really is, because typically when I do a show anywhere in the world, I will try to find, that local place to go get dessert or food and just try all the things and see something cool that's unique to that area.
I love that too. I mean, that's why I've never taken a cruise anywhere, because I just like to immerse myself in the culture of the place. And I feel like if they're just going to drop me off for 8 hours and I'm going to get back on the ship, I'm not going to experience that.
That's so true. Because then you can feel hey, I'm from this place. What's it like to be from Paris, or, just kind of experience that.
Absolutely. Well, good thing that works really well with the profession that you chose. So I'm really curious how you got started in music.
I got started in music very young. I grew up in the Midwest, little farm town in Des Moines, Iowa, just east of Des Moines. And music, I started singing very young. My parents always tell me that like as soon as I could really talk, I had figured out how to sing, which is kind of funny to think back that far that I was figuring out how to sing. And, but it was through high school, and just doing music and writing poetry that I realized that there was a connection between the two. And I started playing shows about age 14. That was probably the first show I ever did. And then after that, I couldn't not do it. It was like in my blood, if that makes sense. So I basically begged my parents to move to Nashville as soon as they graduated high school. And so I packed everything up and ended up, coming to Nashville even before I turned 21. So it was a really big step, for, being from a small town and having your parents just say, okay, we're going to let you do this. And you don't really know anybody, but we're going to take you to Nashville.
Wow. That is amazing that your parents did that. Where are you originally from?
I'm from Iowa. It's a place called Mitchellville, Iowa. And it's like 3,000 people. And everybody knows your name and, everybody knows everybody. So it's kind of a great thing when somebody steps out and, moves away and has a dream.
Yep. Hometown hero. I'm sure you can get a lot of press at home about, all the stuff you're doing in Nashville and everything, because that's big news.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we have a lot of, struggling musicians that listen to this show. They're wanting to make a living in music. And, it would be really helpful if you could talk a little bit about time when you were really, just frustrated and not being able to make the music thing happen. I know we've all been through that at times. And sometimes I ask this question, people say, oh, that happens every week or something, but a story that you could tell that would maybe encourage them, where you just felt like maybe it was time to give up or you were hitting a wall, and how you were able to break through that and continue and what you learned from it.
Absolutely. It's such a great question. I feel like I can also relate to the ups and downs of the business, of course. It can be weekly, but there is a specific story. I actually, when I first moved to Nashville, I started writing songs and getting in a songwriting community. And that's actually where I landed my first record deal. So I was actually signed to a record label for about 8 years. So it sounds like it's kind of a long time in record label years. And it was such a wonderful experience. I learned so much and, got to release music, tour and do all the amazing things with being signed to a label and having a team. And I kind of got to this place towards the end where I felt like artistically, I wasn't making the music that I really wanted to, and I hadn't really felt that connection yet in my career. And that was what was interesting, is that I had the label, I had the team, but I didn't really have the feeling of almost fulfillment in my heart. So I ended up deciding to leave that situation, which was kind of a risky thing at that particular point in my life. And kind of go off and do my own and make a record that I've always dreamed of making. And
now, was that because you felt like they had expectations of you to be a certain kind of artist, or were they, putting their input in, or did you just feel like you needed to do this thing on your own for some reason?
Actually, it's a combination of the two. I think that it can be really difficult. I always tell people, like having a team is wonderful, but there's just a lot of people saying, this is what you should be doing. This is what works for radio and things like that. And it's wonderful to have that. But also on the other side, there was something that I was really like yearning for that I wasn't getting. And it kind of just like ran its course. So I said, you know what, I'm going to go off and do something independently. And, the best thing about being independent is that you make up your own rules, and it can be harder, but you can release music whenever you want. So about 2 years ago, I set out to start this project. And on one particular day, and this is where this story is, really going to, is I went to go write with two really good friends of mine, Cheyenne Metters and Rebecca Powell. And I came into the co-write, and I don't even know why I lost it in that particular moment, but I did, like, to two of my great, really great friends. And that seems to happen in, co-writes every once in a while. And I just kind of unleashed and just said, I've kind of given up this great thing that I had. And now I'm on my own and trying to figure out how I'm going to figure out how to make music again and what that's supposed to sound like. And I was just, in tears. And we ended up writing this song that is so special to me. And it's called Halley's Comet. And it's probably, it kind of was the start to a project called Dream Country that I put out last year. And it just changed my life. And so really the lesson that I learned is that really trust your instincts, because you're never going to go wrong when it's you. And now, mind you, like in label situations, or, there's always really great situations too. And my situation was great. It just was time to make a change. And I always think that that's such a great story, because I ended up writing a song that was so helpful to other people. And that's been the one that connects the most, to people at shows, is because it's all about, realizing that you have a place to shine. Everybody does. And so that's my sweet story about, dark days bring, light, in form. So that was a beautiful one.
I love that. And, songwriting itself can be such a catharsis for sure, right? So that's how you birth some amazing, amazing art.
It's so true.
But it can also be totally healing for things other in your life that, are you're dealing with, like what happened to you. So I'm sure as songwriters, we've all kind of been through one of those experiences before. And it's great to remember those things and why we do what we do,
Exactly. And I'm so grateful for songwriting. I consider it therapy, for whatever I'm going through. And I think, for those struggling artists, it's just such a great way to heal from situations. And the one thing I've learned about being in Nashville too is that you can't really let anyone dictate how you feel. I think that's why it's so wonderful to have songwriting, because you can kind of get it out and be honest, sometimes with people you barely know, because that's what's wonderful about songwriting, is you're connecting on really personal, levels.
That's so true. Well, I want to shift gears real quick and ask you, what is the most mind-blowing experience that you've had so far as a musician? Like one of those times where you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm doing this. Pinch me, is this really me?
Yes, I've had a couple. Two just popped into my head. The first one happened in 2012, and it's kind of an ongoing thing, but I debuted at the Grand Ole Opry, which was something that was so near and dear to me. Growing up, I got introduced to country music by my grandfather, who's unfortunately passed away, but he loved the Opry so much. And he used to tell me when I was little, you've made it when you get to play the Opry. So it was a really special day. My grandpa, my whole family, actually came to Nashville and watched me, debut at the Grand Ole Opry. And Vince Gill introduced me and sang with me. It was kind of this, like, is this really happening right now? Sort of moment. And it was wonderful. And now I can, say I've played there over 80 times.
I was going to say, yeah, I saw you played there like a lot.
Which is crazy, but you never forget the first time and how special it was, and all the people that were there. And then I was thinking, last year, I went on a tour across the UK for about a month, and it was amazing because I played a show in Birmingham, I'd never been there before. And when I got on stage and I was singing a track of mine called Where Cowboys Ride, everyone was singing the song back, the lyrics back. And it was just it was mind blowing to be in another country and have people do it. I actually got really emotional and almost had to stop singing because I was sort of overtaken by it. It was really sweet.
Wow. Now, is that because you've cultivated fans in other countries, or your songs are on the radio in other countries?
Yeah. So one cool thing, another amazing, unexpected door opening from Dream Country, which I told you the story about, is it led to opportunities of me playing in the UK. So 3 years ago, I went over for the very first time and played a festival called Country to Country, which is very cool. It's American artists and UK country artists together. And some people say country music in the UK. I've never heard of that, but actually it's really growing quite, big. And so I started that 3 years ago. And and so fast forward to just last year, I had no idea the impact that Dream Country had. And so it's just been this really beautiful growing process of seeing my music really, work there and people just attaching themselves to the songs and lyrics.
That is really amazing. Well, on that note, what are your favorite kinds of gigs to book? And do you do your own booking, or do you have other people helping you?
So in the US, I actually do all my own booking. And I feel like it's a perfect combo because in the UK, I do have a booking agent that I work with who's amazing, named Phyllis. But here in the US, I actually book my own shows. My favorite types of shows, I love really vibey rooms. So coming up March 5th, I'm playing a show in London at an old church called Union Chapel. And if you go and look at it, it's just so stunning and the acoustics are amazing. So that's the kind of gig that I love playing, dream about those really beautiful acoustics, small theaters, but those are my favorites to get to play.
Now, at the level you're at now, are you mostly just kind of recontacting places you've played in the past to book tours? Or are you even still doing kind of cold, reach outs and stuff like that anymore?
I do cold reach outs all the time. I think it's one of those things. I think as a musician, you're constantly trying new things. And yeah, absolutely. I'm sort of a combination of both. And, for those out there listening, booking your own shows is such good experience. Mm-hmm. I think it's important to be able to book your own shows because, I've definitely been on the side of having an agent who's, a very big time agent. But if you don't have shows booked, it doesn't really mean anything. So I think it's good. It's all about having engagement. So people who believe in you is the key.
Yeah. And I love that you do that because, no matter how big an artist gets, I think they're not too good to call up a venue they've never been at and, tell them why they should have them.
Exactly right. I 100% agree. It's good for growth as a musician.
For sure. We're always needing to get out of our comfort zone because I think that just makes better art anyway.
Exactly. I agree.
So how do you like to engage with your fans? So all these fans that you've made across the world and, locally and all that, are there any, particular ways you like to engage with them either online or offline? Yes.
So I have, I love, obviously social media is fantastic just for the fact that, I can actually go online and put up a 20-second video of a new song and see the comments and be able to write back to them personally, which I think is really cool. And I do that, some people will message me and say, is this really you? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, it is actually. I enjoy that process. I enjoy, being able to actually react to people. And it's fun too, because I have, another side note, which has been a really fun connector too, which is not related to music, but it kind of is I have a side company called Sweet Darling, and I make French macaroons here in Nashville.
Wow, that's a lot of skill there.
Yeah. So it's been kind of fun to connect to fans that way too. Because the story is my husband, my now husband, who's English, he took me to Paris on some of our first dates. So I grew up cooking my whole life, but then when I went to Paris, I had macaroons for the first time and ended up writing a song about it and then starting a company. So it's like one of those like fun little stories that people love. Even when I come to shows, sometimes people will bring me macaroons, which is really sweet.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
That's cool. Well, can you kind of let our listeners know, because I'm curious as well, like what do your streams of income look like as a musician, regardless of the macaroons? Like what, as far as like, are you making most of your money from gigs, from online sales, offline sales, merch, licensing? Like how does that kind of break down?
Absolutely. It's a great question. I truly believe that, whatever kind of artist you are, it's so good to have different income streams coming in. For me, it's definitely touring. Merchandise is a really big thing, making sure you bring merch to the shows, because that's a great, for me, that's been like a really great moneymaker, especially in the UK when I've been touring, because people really love having, your album, and just kind of finding things that are unique to you. Spotify is actually also an income stream as well. I also, not to mention macaroons again, but I do have that sort of streaming income as well. So I actually will teach classes and also do macaroons for events here in Nashville as well, and make a little money that way. But yeah, it's a combination of, because I write songs as well. So I get, royalty checks from, BMI, like every quarter. And it's just like a little stream, like all kinds of streams coming into one big stream, I say.
Yep. Absolutely.
To make it float.
Now, are there any kinds of merch that your fans really like, besides your CDs?
Do you know what's been really cool is this last time I did like a merch order, I made vinyl. And so my fans have loved vinyl. It's just like one of those, I'm so into it as well. Like last year I bought a vinyl player, and, my husband and I've been collecting vinyl again, which is kind of funny. But I love it. I love the way music sounds. And I think people love that as well.
That's amazing. That is just so brings me back to my childhood.
Love it.
And I used to collect the 45s.
Yes.
I still have about 100 of them that I collected over the years.
It's funny that you say that, because I'm staring at about probably 100 of them right now.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. Yes. We have lots of vinyl sitting in our living room right now.
Wow. So, are there any resources that you can recommend, as you've been coming up as an indie artist and learning and all that stuff along the way, for, our artists to learn, everything from maybe it's marketing, music business, or even self-development?
Yes. So one thing that I think is very important, and I've learned this over the last few years, and actually my husband has helped me with this too. And I think this is the main lesson of this point is surround yourself with people who are not only your friends, but are just, they can give you great advice and be able to take that advice. I think being able to take sometimes constructive criticism, but also just being able to grow. So, in my life, I'm around, other musicians who are independent like me, and I've learned so much from them about booking shows, and we all write together, and sometimes we'll, just help each other out when we're facing issues and things like that. But another thing I've learned too is about branding, being able to figure out what are you trying to say. And, like for me, that was a big stepping stone when I released Dream Countries. I finally felt like I had a mission statement. And the look felt right and the music felt right, and almost I know that's a lot to kind of take in when you're like, well, what's my brand? But I think that's just figuring out what you like and who you are, and like words that are meaningful to you. I think that's really good advice that I've learned. And that's from my husband, from friends, just people telling me what they like as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so do you think, being that you are from Nashville, do you think it's really important for musicians to be in a music city like that to be able to thrive and grow?
I don't think you have to be in Music City to grow, but what I would say is it makes me I feel like it makes me better, a better musician being here. And it constantly kind of forces me to stretch out of my comfort zone and write with new people. And so I love being here. I think, whether you're in Music City or not, like being in a community that makes you want to be better is advice that I think is really good.
Absolutely. You are, what is it that you are the combination of the 5 people that you spend the most time with or whatever?
That's so funny. I haven't heard that one before.
Oh, really?
I like that. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So, you don't want to spend your time with negative people, because then you will probably, even if you try not to, that will seep in,
That's so true. And I think that's a good point too, you bringing up, because I've seen that a lot in Nashville. It's like you'll meet people who feel a bit jaded is such a tough word for me to say, but I always feel like just always keep believing, it's like keep the stars in your eyes, because it's a dream and it's not easy. It's not easy for anyone, and everybody has a story. So just staying positive is really important.
Love it. So can you tell our listeners how they can easily get in touch with you online on both your website and social media?
Absolutely. If you go to sarahdarling.com, and that's Sarah with an H. Also check me out on Instagram. That's probably one of my faves. It's official Sarah Darling on Instagram. I just love photography. And
I need to go follow you. I don't think I'm following you yet.
Okay, perfect. But yes, I'm on all the social media outlets, but if you just want to drop a line and say, hey, and you heard me, that'd be wonderful.
And she will actually be the one responding. It's not someone on her team, right?
Exactly.
Awesome. Love it. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. This has all been really helpful and inspiring, and I appreciate you sharing all this with our listeners today. Now go out and make great music, connect with your fans, and grow your business. Female Entrepreneur Musician has been brought to you by FEM147.com and FemaleMusicianAcademy.com. With editing by Jen Eads of 317 Sound Design and music by Stella Ronson.